Welcome to another episode of Bowcast. This is the archery podcast with the new school archer in mind. Bowcast covers everything from tips, techniques, and archery technology that will help raise your success in the field. And now, here is your host, covering the straight shot, Carrie Zilka.
Welcome back, Bowcasters. We have got a jam-packed episode for you this week. We've got Malcom Jones, professional archer, on the line, and we're going to talk about the steps he takes to get ready for these high-intensity shoots. But first, some quick business. We want to thank Spy Point Trail Cameras for supporting the show. If you're looking for some birthday ideas or some Christmas ideas, they recently published a dad's gift guide. It was for Father's Day, but it can really be applicable anytime, that I thought was really good. And it wasn't just like trail cameras. It was really cool stuff. So if you want to read that, or you've got somebody special in your life you want to pick up a really cool gift for, just type in bowcast.net/dad. Also, in case you haven't seen, we have new merch available. I ordered a ton of swag. You can go to bowcast.net/merch for all the goodies. Now, on to the interview. Malcom, welcome to the show.
Thank you. How are you?
I am great. I am really excited that you wanted to come onto the show and kind of talk to us a bit.
I'm probably more excited than you are.
And so you came across, I think it was a Facebook post I saw or something. I was like, oh man, I wonder if he'd come on the show to talk about some of the stuff that he does for these events that he partakes in. But before we get to that, why don't you explain the listeners where you're from and how you got into archery in the first place?
I'm from a little town in Pennsylvania called York, Pennsylvania. I've been started hunting, obviously when I was a kid. My dad would take me out before I was legally allowed to carry a firearm or a bow. And then, went through that whole hunter safety process, started hunting with guns at first. And I remember the deer I shot was with a 12 gauge with a 3-inch slug, and I was 12 years old. And that will definitely open a 12-year-old's eyes and ears. And then he had gotten me my first bow. It was a Martin Magcat, I think it was called. And the first time I shot it, I shot it at we got it, all set up. And I shot it at 20 yards, and the first 3 arrows I ever shot in my entire life, all 3 of them went inside of the Super X, inside 10 ring. And he was standing behind me, and he started laughing, and he said, "Do it again." And I did it again, and I still remember that day like it was yesterday. And ever since that day, I knew, I was pretty good with a bow, and I was always shooting in my yard, and friends would come over, and, we would have little tournaments in my yard, against each other. And so I always knew then that, I was okay at it. But once I started hunting with a bow and, shooting deer and everything else, that became like my passion. Just because of the close encounters, up close and personal with the deer. It's just, you get a rush from firearms as well, hunting period, but hunting with a bow just gave me a different feeling. And that was the start of it. And I actually stopped when I was, 18 or so for a couple years. And just a couple years ago, got back into it. slowly. I got a hunting bow, started shooting, and picked up like right where I left off. And I was like, man, I wonder if I can make some money doing this. So I started, like, I always followed it and watched it, and like once I, thought about really getting into trying to do something with it and make, a little bit of money doing it because I love doing it. I started researching and looking stuff up, and I was like, man, that was really fun. And did not realize the extent of it when I went to, like, my first big tournament. And oh, it's kind of embarrassing, but it's funny. I signed up for the open money class, not knowing what open meant. You know what I mean? Like with long bars, lenses, and
yeah,
semi-professional and professional shooters. And it was a 20-yard spot shoot. So I signed up for the open money class with my hunting bow that I literally just shot a deer with 2 weeks prior, and went there with my hunting setup and everything, and my lighted nocks. And these guys, they're shooting 27s and 26s, and I'm shooting hunting arrows with lighted nocks. And it was I actually qualified out of like 90 some shooters in the open money class with that bow, and I emphasize not lighted nocks because everybody was just staring at me like, what is this guy doing? And I didn't realize like what open meant or who any of these guys were, and now today I know them, and I'm like, Jesus, what was I doing? And but I ended up qualifying. It was really cool. Obviously I did not win, but after that I was like determined to be better and be just like them and be better than them. And then, there was a couple local guys that everybody knew, and I was like, I'm going to beat him. I'm going to beat him. I want to be like him. I'm going to be better than him. And it was, I started winning everything locally, all the state shoots. It took a lot of work, a lot of my money. But yeah, I shot and still do shoot every single day, 7 days a week. It drives my wife nuts, but now she's, more on board with it, realizing like, he's actually pretty good.
maybe he should, keep up with this because he's kind of good.
And but it took it. I was just, and still am, determined to be a household name and to make a name for myself. And whenever you love doing something so much, it's not an effort to practice every day. It's not an effort to maintain that consistency to make you better. It's just a part of your life and who you are at that point in time because, you love doing it. So yeah, that's how all that got started.
Tell me a little bit about how you juggle, like having a regular day job and what is a professional career as well. So you're almost working like 2 full-time jobs. Well, you are not almost, you are working 2 full-time jobs. Tell me how you juggle that, and plus a wife. I don't know if you have kids, but anybody who does have kids, it's a lot. It's so much.
Yeah. It is. I'm really tired right now, and honestly almost forgot about this, and I was just laying in the bed and like, man, I could fall asleep right now. So luckily, I work second shift. And this year was my, like, first, real real pro year, like with companies behind me and supporting me and all this other stuff. So last year, I shot semi-pro for a little while and did pretty good and had a really good year in ASA and realized that was where my calling was, and that's where I spend most of my time is at ASA tournaments, but also indoors. I like IBO. I just like shooting my bow, so I go to anything. But so I wake up at 5 o'clock every single day, and I have my own 3D course here at my house set up all throughout the woods. I understand that not everybody does, and that's okay. It's just the fact of grabbing your bow and repeating the same motion every single day, time and time again that's what makes you better and consistent, because consistency is key in archery. So I wake up at 5 every day, have my coffee, and I go out to my 3D course and shoot a full 20 target round. And then, if I didn't like something during my round, I, go back to that and figure out what I didn't like, if I want to make changes in my bow. And I always go by the phrase, it's better to bleed in practice than it is on the field. Meaning, get out your flaws now. So whenever you're there, you're not trying to perfect a flaw. You know what I mean? And then I go to work at 1:30 p.m. to 10 p.m. Monday through Friday. So I get home and try to eat something if I'm hungry, jump in the shower and go straight to sleep, wake up and do it all over again. And then on the weekends, I still maintain the 5 o'clock wake up and get out early, especially now before it's a million degrees, and get my rounds in and come home and spend time with my family and cook on the grill and hang out with the dogs, go fishing. I'm trying to get ready for hunting season coming up now, so I got that going on. But hopefully, I've been working harder than ever to make my first pro year worth it and make the people that help me, the companies that help me, realize like, hey, this guy's busting his butt and, making a name for himself and helping at the tournaments and offering his time to other people. Let's keep him around, and I'm doing everything I can on my end to turn this into full-time so that I don't have to juggle 2 full-time jobs. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's I got obviously, I hope I have good feelings about it. I get good feedback. I always try to help when I'm at tournaments, especially with the younger generation, and shooting with the kids I did in Metropolis, which was like the highlight of my weekend. That meant more than shooting my own rounds.
I can imagine.
So yeah, that's how we deal with that every day. It's tiring.
Yep.
I'm away from home more than I am home, which sometimes burns me out a little bit. You know what I mean? Some days I wish, I could just sit in the house and relax and take it easy. But I always keep in the back of my mind on the days that I want to do that one of my competitors is out there getting better. You know what I mean? So that's what keeps me driven and shooting every day, practicing every day. Plus, I love doing it, so it's really not that difficult to get up and go do it.
Right. Well, let's give the listeners just maybe like your top 3 tips for when you have an event coming up that is it's going to be a hard event. It's going to be an intense event. It's going to be an intimidating event because I don't care how professional you are, how many you've done. Everybody's always got the jitters before, and just, they have their steps that they take so that they can go into an event and shoot confidently. You mentioned consistency. Would you say that would be like your number one tip?
You've got to be consistent and repeat the same motions every single time. Like, I try to remember every shot that I take, bad or good, especially the good ones that hit directly behind the pin, goes right where I want it to go. The bow held crazy steady. It didn't move. I didn't move, and everything felt good. I try to remember exactly how I felt in that moment. I try to remember how my hand felt on my face holding my release. I try to remember how my bow arm felt holding my bow, what I was looking at, how I was looking at the target. Was I staring at the target? Was I staring at my pin? Because I definitely wouldn't recommend trying to stare at your pin the whole time. But I try to remember how I felt in that moment on my very best shots to try to repeat every single time. And, I can remember things better looking at them. And so if that means set your phone up and hit record and record yourself for 10, 15, 20 shots and, make sure you remember which ones were the best, which ones hit behind the pin, and look at yourself. Look at what you were doing. Try to remember that and repeat that every single time. And if you make a bad shot, you make a bad shot. There's been shots that I felt so good, better than any shot I've taken that hit behind the pin, and it didn't hit anywhere that I was aiming. You know what I mean? It hit like a foot left or a foot right or high or low or whatever. Sometimes those feel better than anything, and I'm like, man, how did that happen? But it's when you make a bad shot, it's not, you can't dwell on it. Kicking the dirt and getting mad and thinking about it's not going to matter. It's not going to help you on the next shot. Your next shot counts the most. One shot at a time. Every single arrow counts the most. If you make a bad shot, go to your next one. Forget about the last one because that next one counts the most. And it's hard to, like in Foley, it was my first pro tournament, and I was sitting in third place going into day 2. I was in peer group number 1, and the first couple shots were great. I picked up right where I left off on day 2 and was smashing 12s, and something had happened. And, I made a rookie mistake and just completely broke down mentally and forgot everything. And you can call equipment failure for a reason. Whether it be your equipment actually breaking down or you needing a minute, to calm down and get yourself back together. I should have done it, but, me being hard-headed like I am, thought it was me, and I'm like, dude, get your head out of your rear and start shooting because you're falling off the train real quick. And it ended up being something that I should have checked and didn't. And it didn't have a good end story there. And I dwelled on that.
That would be a really good tip too. Yeah, just how to just take a step back and take a second and not get so overwhelmed. Just
it's very
frustration
easy
and emotion.
to get overwhelmed when your feelings are wrapped up in it, and you're in a tournament and you had a super, super crazy good day 1, and starting off good on day 2, and it starts coming undone. Yeah, call breakdown. Just, go over to the practice bag, call breakdown, even if you're not, fixing your equipment, just get yourself together, rethink, regroup, and take a couple shots on the practice bag, make sure everything's okay, and go back and pick up where you left off and try not to continue to dwell on, man, I just shot 5 or I shot an 8 or whatever. You know what I mean? It's very, very, very easy to do. It sucks, but it's very easy to do. Another one, I guess, I carried that tournament to the next 2, and I just couldn't get it out of my head. And I'm like, man, what did you do? You messed up. And I carried that mentality over to the next 2 tournaments, and it showed. You know what I mean? It's just because I have such high expectations of myself and what every shot should be and where it should be, where the error is supposed to be, and it's not there. And then, I'm getting mad, and I'm like, man, what are you doing? And it took me just honestly 2 months ago to realize, like, man, I'm carrying that this whole time. Like, let it go. And we had a really good days at the last one here in Metropolis, and I missed the shoot down by 6 points. And from the last 2 tournaments that I did carry over the not so good mentality, missing the shoot down by 6 points felt good. Yes, I missed it, but it still felt good. You know what I mean? And knowing that I'm back on track, okay, now here we go. Now we're, getting back together and getting my head back in it. Now I can carry that confidence into the next one. And that would be another tip, confidence. Making sure once your equipment is up to par how you like it, and you're shooting at home really well, helps going into tournaments. You know what I mean? Knowing that you can shoot well, your bow's shooting the way it's supposed to be shooting. Now all you got to do is do your job. Don't think about it.
Sure. Don't
go in over-analyzing and overthinking it, because I tend to do that a lot. Like in the middle of a round trying to fix your form or play with different anchor, but that's not a good idea. You know what I mean? Like, if you even if you're having a bad day and, you're not hitting in the middle where you want to hit, you take what you have for that day and you make the very best of it. Like I said, even if you're not having a good day, you find something that's going well and focus on that. Don't focus on anything else other than the one thing that's going well, and it does wonders. Stay optimistic. Don't, get down on yourself, and never count yourself out, because the swing of a tournament can change so fast and so dramatically. You never count yourself out. If you're not hitting 12s in an ASA tournament, and if it's just one of those days where everything's just out, you step back and you tell yourself, okay, I'm just going to, you reevaluate your expectation for the day. If everything's just out and I'm not hitting 12s, especially for the unknown yardage guys. If you're, like I said, everything's out, just out, and you're not hitting them, you just reevaluate what you're going to do for that day. Tell yourself, I'm just going to keep it in the middle, the 10 ring, because the 10 ring on Mackenzie targets is pretty sizable. Shooting unknown, it gets a little hairy, but just tell yourself, I'm going to keep it in the 10 ring today and just play it safe. It's harder to do that in known yardage, but if you do that, it takes a ton of weight off your shoulders rather than having them high expectations of, I got to hit every single one of them. if it's one of them days, and we all have them, there's just, you can't help it. You know what I mean? It is what it is. You're just not, everything, all cylinders aren't firing. So you reevaluate it. All right, I'm just going to play in the middle. I'm not going to give anything back. And you would be surprised at how many 12s you'll actually catch just doing that alone, instead of being aggressive, aiming at every single one of them. Because having one of them days that you're not being able to catch them, and you're trying to aim at every single one of them, you're probably going to shoot 8s, you're probably going to shoot 5s, and you're going to get frustrated, and then it's going to just, everything's going to come undone. So, when you're taking a step back and reevaluating all that, and you're telling yourself, all right, I'm just going to keep it in the 10 ring. As long as I hit the 10 ring, I'll be happy. And it takes all that pressure off yourself. It takes all that weight off yourself. And then you can just shoot your bow like you're supposed to. When you hit a 10 ring, you're like, all right, cool, I hit the 10 ring, move to the next target. Next target, you hit a 12, and you're like, oh, man, it's called a 12. And now your confidence is building back up. You know what I mean? If that made any sense.
It did. And those are amazing tips. They really are. They are really good. I was writing a few things down. I'm definitely going to try that whole videoing yourself thing. I was like, ooh, I should try that. I'd probably be like, oh my God, I'm terrible at this.
It's, even have somebody, take pictures or something, I always try to remember how I felt during the good ones and how I felt during the bad ones. And before you take the shot, you visualize yourself pulling the bow. You feel the bow in your hand. You feel your release in your hand. You feel the tension on your bow hand pulling the string back, and your release in your hand. You feel your hand going to your face, looking through your pin, watching your pin at first, staring down your target where you want to hit, and then you feel your bow going off, and you can just visualize where the arrow's going to go before you even grab your bow to step up to the stake and shoot. Or this goes for any discipline of archery. I just, visualize it before you do it. And then never take your eyes off of what you want to hit. You stare down that target like you're trying to kill it. Sometimes, especially shooting indoors, I stare through my pin and into the Super X inside the 10 ring. And when my shot breaks, I know that arrow's going to go there, regardless of if my pin was in it or not. And the crazy part is sometimes my pin isn't in that Super X, but because you're staring that thing down so hard, it's almost like the law of your body and the law of, gravity, I guess you could call it, because you're just, where you want it to go. You're staring down that X. You're not watching your pin float. You're not watching your pin bounce all over the, 9 ring. And you're just staring at that Super X when your shot breaks, watching your arrow go down through there. It's going to hit. And sometimes my pin's not even in the Super X. Sometimes it'll be at the bottom of the 10 ring and just smash the inside out of a Super X. And I'm like, It's staring at what you want to aim at.
Yeah.
Takes away that panic of, oh my God, my pin's not there. You know what I mean? Forget your pin. Forget it's even there. You got to no, don't do that. I was going to say take your pin out, but it's just forget it's there. You just got to embrace the float almost. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Just let that thing float where it wants to float, and you just lock your eyes on what you want to aim at and shoot that bow, and it's going to go there.
That is really cool. Those are really good tips. I appreciate you sharing that with us.
I hope it works.
Yeah.
And everybody can say, hey, that really works.
I know.
Or it doesn't work. And they're going to say, oh, that guy sucks.
No. Well, very cool. Well, why don't you give us a quick rundown on the equipment that you're shooting and some of your sponsors? Well, not some, all of your sponsors.
All right. I shoot for Elite, which obviously make amazing bows. Target bows, I currently am shooting the Result 38 from last year. I do have the new Result 36, which I actually started the year out with and then went back to my 38 because I shoot a longer axle-to-axle bow better. So, yes, Elite's one of my biggest sponsors. Great company, great people. They treat everybody amazing. Customer service is great. Plus, you don't need a bow press to tune your bow.
We are big fans of Elite here at Bowcast.
Oh, nice. And then my sight, I use Custom Bow Equipment, CBE Elevate target sight. My scope, I also shoot for Shrewd. So I use a 40 millimeter Shrewd Optum I use a two-step front shade, which knocks it down to 35 millimeter because of the aperture size I use in my peep, which I use a specialty podium peep. I also shoot for specialty. I use the podium peep with a 3/32 aperture. Winner's Choice strings. Hamsky rest. In my opinion, there should be no other rest company to even pick from. I use the Hamsky Target Hybrid rest on both target bows and the Hunter Hybrid on my Elite Cure for hunting. Tack vanes, I use 2.25 inch tack driver vanes. For anybody that has adhesion issues, just do one swipe with the tack primer pen, and as you're putting the glue on and as you're putting that vane on the shaft, apply a little pressure on your jig, hold it for 20-25 seconds, wipe it down, and that thing will never come off. I also use the tack topo wraps on my target shafts. Black Eagle arrows, I shoot Black Eagle PS26s for ASA, 27s for indoor, and PS23s for IBO. And for field and USA stuff, I use the Black Eagle X Impacts. I use 140 grains in the X Impacts. I use 150 grain knock crusher points from Black Eagle in my PS26s and 27s. I use Dead Center Diamond Series stabilizers, a 30-inch front bar and a 15-inch rear. Mossy Oak is another big company that does a lot for me and the archery industry and outdoor industry. Full Drawn Addiction, they make amazing jerseys. You can get custom-made jerseys done by them. They do hats and shirts, and it's family-owned and operated company. They're great people, and they help a lot of, they do a lot for, disabled archers and veterans, and they give back a lot. It's called Full Drawn Addiction. Last Chance Archery Products, I use their press. That's the only bow press that my bow will go in. Bow vices as well. And Scott releases. I use the Scott Longhorn, the micro tune Longhorn. I also shoot the new Scott Apex thumb button I've been playing around with, but I'm a hinge guy. I'm only using the Apex for hunting. I was going to use it for 3D and target and stuff, but from shooting a hinge for so long, I just kept finding myself trying to pull it and forgetting that I had to hit a button. Then I was getting all jumpy when it wasn't going off, and I'm like, why isn't this thing going off? Yeah, it's pretty funny. Scott Foods. Oh, my lens is from X-Focus 365. So in London, I'm not sure if anybody knows about the power line in London. It is absolutely treacherous and terrible. You can't see anything. It's just one huge glare all day long. That's how it used to be. And I switched over to the X-Focus 365 lens this year. And for the price, period, there is no better lens in my opinion. I have yet to be in any lighting situation and have any sort of glare on my lens. And I used to shoot with glasses until I got my contacts and finally got used to them this year. But that lens and having all the different clarifiers that Specialty makes for that podium, because you can pair up, I don't care how bad your vision is, they've got so many different clarifiers, that you can pair up to make it good, if you need to use one.
Really?
But I definitely recommend getting an X-Focus 355 lens if you are having trouble seeing.
Awesome. That's good to know.
Pretty sure that's it.
Okay, cool. Well, we are at just about time here, so I would just like to say again, thank you so much for coming on the show. Why don't you tell the listeners where they can find more about you?
Facebook, Facebook Malcom Jones or Malcom Jones -professional archer, or Instagram. I think it's mjones1788, and follow me on my travels across the country. And if anybody needs any, help with anything, I'm more than happy to answer any questions. Just message me on Messenger or Instagram or whatever, and I'll try to help the best that I can. And I hope my advice helps you guys in every way possible. And thank you for having me on.
Yeah, you're very, very, very welcome.